We are in the final stages of them desperately trying to force their way upon everybody. We are the enemy of the state, and you have to understand that.
Martin Armstrong is a cycles analyst that's rarely been wrong. He says we have to have at least 2 years worth of food put away. And he says that all of the things that we are seeing now politically is only going to get worse and is going to lead to war because they need a war. You need 2 years of food, says Mr. Martin Armstrong. And this article here is written by Mr. Greg Hunter from USA Watchdog. He is over at Rumble because he was removed from YouTube a few years back. And here he says that Mr. Armstrong has new data on how the economy is doing. And he says, spoiler alert, it's not doing well. Well, we're told on the mainstream media, ladies and gentlemen, like, unemployment is at all-time lows and things like that. These are words that they use to try to convince you that you're doing well. When you see the stock market going up and up and up, that's just a metric that they try to use to try to convince you that the stock market is some way associated with the real economy when it's really not. So you have to look for yourselves and look to other sources of news that maybe are not biased like the mainstream media is. And here Mr. Hunter continues saying that he asked Mr. Armstrong if the U.S. economy could default if countries around the world would stop buying its debt. And he explained, quote, I think the U.S. could default on its debt
as early as 25.
Wow.
But probably 27. I mean, we've kicked the can down the road as far as we can go.
Which is not far off, but it's still enough that people can get prepared. And that is my motivation, ladies and gentlemen, is so that you can out there get prepared for what's coming. I know, AP, it's been coming forever. Well, isn't it here? Take a look at the economy. Take a look at all people that are losing their jobs. Just take a look at the state of the world. Aren't the things that we've been talking about for years actually here? The thing is that what I've been saying is that it's going to get worse, and it is. Not according to me, but according to Mr. Armstrong and a lot of other psychoanalysts that are out there spreading the same message. It's not just in the United States, he says. Europe is in the same boat, and so is Japan. And this is why they need to start a war. Right? So that they can blame this economic disaster that's going to come on a war. They think that by going to war, that's the excuse to default on the debt. And wouldn't that be convenient, ladies and gentlemen, with the exception of all of those people that end up losing their lives? They simply will not pay China if it comes to that. If they try to sell their debt, good luck. We are not redeeming it. Meaning, like, if China tries to sell their debt, the U.S. is going to say, we're not redeeming it, right? In case we do go to war, excuse me. The same thing is happening in Europe. So once that happens, you go into war, and that is their excuse on this whole debt thing to collapse, which wipes out pensions, etc. Anything that's on paper, in my opinion, will be wiped out. So if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Then with the whole CBDC thing, the central bank digital currency, for those of you that don't know, the IMF has already completed its digital coin. And wait until you hear what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. You know when I told you that I have a little bit of hope because I heard the Orange Man Bad said that there's no way that he would allow a digital currency, a CBDC, centrally banked digital currency. That was key there, centrally banked digital currency. What Mr. Armstrong is saying here, and I'll play a quick clip so that you can listen to him, say it himself. What he's saying is that the government is not going to have a CBDC that you will use for commerce, that the average citizen will use for commerce. It will be the banks.
What they're doing with the CBDCs, you have all these banks setting up, trying to create their own. Therefore, what will happen is the Fed will not issue one. The Fed will regulate theirs. So therefore, what will happen is the bank can then report, they already have these rules in place, suspicious activity reports. And they can say, oh, okay, fine. This transaction, he just sent some money off to this guy. We think that looks suspicious. They don't need a search warrant. If the government did it directly, they need a search warrant. But if the bank does it, they do not. So the banks are going to be the ones that are actually doing the same thing that, YouTube and everybody, and with free speech, they're going to do it economically.
But one of the reasons why the banks are being allowed to fail and then consolidating into lesser banks, into bigger banks, but less, is because they will be easily managed by the government. So you know how the government was saying, hey, you can play this on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or whatever, but don't play that? They'll be doing the same thing with the banks once the banks consolidate and create their own CBDCs and they stop allowing the use of cash. And he continues to say that these people are desperately just trying to hang on to power. Nobody wants to give it up and nobody wants reform. And before I continue, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and fill you in on this real quickly about OUPES. Now, every once in a while, I'll get onto their site just to see what's going on, if there's something that I wasn't informed about. And check this out. I can't believe the price that they're having on the OUPES 1200. Right now, you can get an OUPES 1200 plus a bag to carry it in with all of the peripherals for $349. I don't know why they're selling it like this. This seems to be the only OUPES product that's on super duper sale like it is right now, as far as I can see. But it's $349, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. It's $60 more than what an OUPES 600 would cost, a Mighty Mouse, without a bag. So you're getting a bag for free, plus the OUPES 1200, $350. And if you use the code that I will leave on a pinned comment and in the description of my videos, you get to save an additional 5%. Now let's go back to our video. I just thought that this is such an awesome deal that I would share with all of you. And here, Greg Hunter asked Mr. Armstrong, what should the average person be doing right now? And this is what he says. I think you need safely 2 years worth of food. Let me say that again. I think you will need safely, meaning that he's pretty confident of this, 2 years worth of food supply. This is what I have, he says. It's not just that prices will go up, but mainly, and he says mainly, because there will be shortages. And he follows up on that by saying, because you do not know what the government is going to do. They will do whatever they have to in order to survive. That is what governments always do.
At this stage in the game, they are so desperate to hold on to this power.
Wow.
And they don't want to give it back. You know, the old joke is you can vote your way into communism, but you got to shoot your way out. The idea of the United States being free, land of the home, brave and all the rest of this stuff, that's all nonsense. It's gone.
Armstrong says his most recent data suggests that the government approval rating in the USA are worse than Biden's 8% approval rating. Congress, according to Armstrong, is dragging the bottom with 7% approval rating. Meaning what, ladies and gentlemen? That the country has no confidence in its government. Period. Armstrong has long said that people will buy gold and silver when faith in government crashes. That is exactly what Armstrong is seeing around the world today. Gold is bouncing around $2,300. And a new gold and silver rally is coming soon. And he's not the only cycles analyst that I've heard say that. I've heard Charles Nenner say the same thing. I've heard Bo Polney say the same thing as well. Just coming from a cycles perspective, not using technical analysis and or data that they see in the economy, just because of the cycles is telling them that gold and silver are going to hit a new rally. And Mr. Armstrong says that it's going to be rallying for about the next 10 years or so. Well, him and others. War is also coming sooner than later with the announcement that Ukraine will be joining NATO as early as June. Ladies and gentlemen, if Ukraine joins NATO, then I would have to say that there will be guaranteed world war. And listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is coming out on the 6th of May. He is also predicting a big turn on or about the 7th of May. All right. Armstrong predicts a recession will start then and go until 2028. GDP will continue to fall and inflation will continue to rise. Man, ladies and gentlemen, I've been telling you that inflation has another big step up than what it is now, that we've just been getting somewhat of a plateau excuse me, on inflation, but there's going to be another big rise coming, and that's not going to be the end of it either. He says that the perfect storm for a dreaded stagflation economy is coming. And of course, if you want to watch the entire episode, ladies and gentlemen, just go ahead and come to this. I'll leave this linked. Come to this and click on here and you'll be able to see the entire interview. I highly, highly recommend it. I've been following Mr. Martin Armstrong for a pretty long time, and I think he is a good person. He was imprisoned, in my opinion, unlawfully. He was imprisoned for contempt, not for a month or two, but for several years. I think it was close to 8 years, because he wouldn't turn over some data to the government that was proprietarily his, having to do with a computer program that he owns that allows him to predict a lot of these cycles that he predicts that are coming ahead.
And I put this on our site last year. I said, we had information back then that they were going to start a war before the 24 election.
So ladies and gentlemen, you can take this for what it's worth. At the very minimum, get your preps up and keep up on your preps. Having said that, I hope that you got something out of this. God bless every one of you. Remember to go check out that OUPES 1200. I don't know how long they're going to have that price. I just noticed it this morning. Outstanding deal. If you're in the market, that is. And remember to use my discount code for an extra 5% off. God bless every one of you. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.
You said we're going to have a revolt in government debt, and evidently they're going to stop buying it. So if people stop buying our debt and we can't roll over that debt to new debt, how close are we to defaulting? We, the United States, how close are we to defaulting?
Travel restrictions this summer to lock you down for the climate.
No.
And then they're already talking about bird flu and lockdowns for that. Then you've got, the State Department, which is in the hands of the neocons, threatening war with absolutely everybody, including China, when China is the biggest buyer of U.S. debt. How are you going to sell new debt? If you can't sell the new debt to pay off the old, that's when the default comes. This is why they love Biden, because they all get to do whatever they want to do, and nobody says no.